Hey, good morning. Bonjour a tout le monde. Muy buenos días a todas y todos.
Good morning, everyone. I will start with the information on translation and interpretation. So please make sure you choose the option and that has a shape of a world icon. So make sure you choose the language you want to hear.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Before we get started, hope everyone is good. And I wanted to let you know that we have in this bigger virtual room the possibility to get simultaneous interpretation. Um, and therefore, you would need to select at the bottom of your screen the icon with the word interpretation with the shape of a globe. And in there, you may select English if English is your language of preference, either for listening or for talking. In particular, Ambassador Jensen, this would be if you have some words in Spanish, you select the Spanish, and if rather you speak in English or French, you choose the language accordingly. Um, Ahora, por los de ustedes llegando de habla español, muy buenos
Now for the
días.
Spanish speakers, good morning. And before starting today's seminar, I would like to mention a function. We have a professional service of interpreters, and they will be able to interpret. And you may choose the icon
y elegir el idioma de su preferencia.
and choose the language of your preference. You have to choose at the world icon the language you prefer to hear.
Original español. Y si ustedes hablan, se va también a hacer el mismo servicio, entonces
So whatever you say, you will be speaking. It will be translated into both languages or the three languages. And Mr. Vargas wanted to choose your language. So the English speakers and French speakers will get your translation.
Así, entonces, ahora tengo seleccionado.
And now I have chosen
Favorito mío, el español, aunque mi idioma
Spanish.
materno es el francés, segunda
My mother tongue is French.
quiero presentarme. Mi
I
nombre es
would like to
Silván
introduce
Goudreau,
myself.
soy
My name is
coordinador
Sylvain
regional
Goudreau,
por
Regional
Colleges and
Coordinator
Institutes
for
Canada,
the Colleges and Institutes in Canada,
coordinador regional
Regional Coordinator
Educación para el Empleo
for
con la Alianza del
Education for
Pacífico.
Employment,
Entonces,
the
el día de
Pacific
hoy voy a
Alliance.
servirles como
Today,
maestro de
I will be
ceremonia y además como facilitador
your
de algunos
host
grupos.
and a
Entonces,
facilitator in
les voy
some
a
of the
acompañar
subgroups.
todo el día de hoy
I will be with you
y ojalá que
today,
disfrutan bien
and
el evento.
hopefully you enjoy the event.
Nuestro último webinario de
The event
4
will be the last
y
webinar of
recuerden
4,
que la semana pasada
and
tuvimos
mentioned that last week
lo cual fue
we
un
had
éxito y
the
si
panel
algunos de
C,
ustedes
which
han
was a great
participado y
success.
no han llenado el sondeo de
If
satisfacción
you participated on that,
por hacerlo
please make sure you fill the
el
survey,
día de hoy tendremos
because at the end of the
otro
day,
sondeo de
we
satisfacción
will have
para el día
another
de hoy.
survey.
Finalmente también les quiero
Finally,
mencionar
I would
que
like to mention
invitamos a comunicarse
that
a través
we
de
invite
nuestras
you to
redes sociales.
communicate through social
Tenemos el
network.
hashtag del
We
evento,
have the hashtag of
hashtag
the event,
EPEAP Foro.
EPEAP Forum.
Muy bien. Entonces les deseo una linda y
I wish
enriquecedora
you
experiencia
an
en este foro
enriching
virtual.
experience of this virtual forum.
Vamos, empezamos. Entonces, sin
We will
mayor
start
demora,
now.
tengo el
I have the privilege to introduce you to our first authority invited for the opening of this fourth webinar, the Canadian ambassador in Peru and Bolivia, Ralph Jensen. He is a diplomat
al Ministerio de Asuntos
and
Exteriores
he became part of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 1988 and has appointed in September 2019 as the ambassador of Canada and Peru Bolivia, general director of the office and also chair of the world issues or world affairs in Ottawa, and also part of the permanent mission of Canada in the United Nations, advisor in New York, and later at the European Union in Brussels. Has also been advisor minister in Paris and Rome, and joint member of mission in Tel Aviv. Now he is a political scientist from York University, a master in international relations in London School of Economics, and a certificate of leadership of the public sector and governance. Ambassador Jensen, the floor is yours.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Sylvain. Good morning, everyone. This is a great pleasure for me to be here with you. And I was saying, Sylvain and other colleagues, that many years ago in Budapest, I worked with SICAN and with the programs of democracy. And it is a professional and efficient institution. I worked with great pleasure. I am very glad to be here today. And I'm very glad to be here and see how successful it has been in the region. I would like to congratulate the organizers for the incredible job today. We have 4 intense days at very high level, high technical level. And in spite of the difficulties of the day, with an excellent attendance, we had over 1,000 attendants to the forum. And I would also like to thank for the participation of the outstanding speakers today, representatives of the governments, companies, private public sector, Chile, Colombia, Mexico, and Peru, along with Canada. They have all shared with us their good practices as well as their challenges. And therefore, this event will constitute an excellent experience in dialogue South. It is a space that it comes in a timely manner, and the effects of pandemics in the area of education is very high, and also the opportunities. Virtual communication will be key in the teaching of the following years. Adapting yourself to new reality is an urgency for all countries. This event is an exercise in this line. The subject of the forum, technical professional training of excellence, it is a challenge in itself. And being able to give alternatives to thousands of young people, especially the most vulnerable, so they can find a job in accordance to their competencies, more resilient, so as to face a complex future and maybe marked for new pandemics. And we share technical and professional training as an effective option to reduce gaps in inequality. Vocation of the institutes and the demands of the private sector is a great challenge. And to achieve that, the articulation among all the sectors and actors is fundamental. Likewise, integrated action between the different sectors of the government. And regarding our area, in our embassy, includes many areas of the government, of the Canadian government in the forum. We have presented excellent examples of good practices and that are positive and necessary for intersectorial coordination. Today, in the fourth and last day, what we need to synthesize is learnings from each country. And the ones that are called for the day, they have that great challenge in hands. I do not want to skip this opportunity to point out the work of this program in the countries of the Pacific Alliance. And in Peru specifically, I would like to point out the joint work with the partners, governments, the ministries of education, work and promotion and foreign affairs. This will look for contributing for the extractive sector to be more inclusive and improve the opportunities for men and women, inclusion of women and the indigenous people are priorities. Inclusion and how we can do that, and also in the extraction sector, we can reduce barriers of discrimination and machism. And what we're trying to focus here is a focus on gender for the inclusion of this program. CICAN is a partner, and the government of Canada has been working for many years. We congratulate CICAN and we congratulate the countries partners for the results achieved to date. I would like to greet everyone once again, and I would like to foster the ones that have the presentations to present, to give your best, to present the best efforts today. Thank you very much. I hope you have a great day. Thank you very much, dear Ambassador, and for the opening words and communicating the value this has for this South-South cooperation, and also the importance of reducing the gaps of inequality in terms of discrimination and machism. Thank you very much. As a second political authority, we have the great luck of having Juan Eduardo Vargas Duran, and he is an Undersecretary of Higher Education in Chile. He is a business administrator from the Catholic University of Chile and a master in arts and philosophy in the University of Navarra in Spain. He is the Undersecretary of Higher Education in the second government of Sebastián Piñera's government. Till July 2019, he was the Chief of Division of Higher Education of the Ministry of Education, a precursor activity that is to the current Undersecretariat. Under his leadership, he started the institutionality created along with laws 21091 and 094. Previously, vice rector of pre-graduate in Universidad del Desarrollo, and also advisor of Mineduc in terms of benefits, scholarships, and credits. in the academic area, has been a teacher in microeconomy and corporate finance, has been a member of different boards, and has taken executive positions in the corporate sector. We would like to welcome you. The floor is yours. Thank you, Silvan. Good morning. I would like to say hello to each and every one that are attending. I would say my greetings in Spanish, and I need to improvise French or English, so I will not do it that way. I greet everyone. I would like to thank, in first place, the effort that you are all making in this current context to participate in this third forum. And we are not foreign of what is going on or alien to what is going on in Latin America and the rest of the world. And I would like to point out the effort to participate in this forum, intersectoral forum. And for this, all participants, the permanent work of SICAN, of supporting what is related to the technical and professional training. So in that sense, what I would like to transmit is that from the political vision of the government of Chile is that the importance that we want to assign, we have been given to that. And strengthening the education has been part of the program of the government program of Sebastián Piñera, but it's not only lines written there, but we have given important steps towards strengthening technical and professional. And it is a fundamental and motor or engine so as to not only reduce gaps regarding vulnerability of the population, but making it an important engine for the development because it allows to train technicians or technical professional students so that they can go into the labor market in a successful way. In this point of view, it's important to have this vision from the Ministry of Education. And I would like to mention what we have lived as a reality in our country. In the last weeks, we have undergone an important discussion due to the uh, bill presented for 2021, a bill of law that is presented 2021, and of nearby countries, Latin American countries. And what happens is that we're finding ourselves with a budget that is adjusted quite tight. And the priority established by the government has been established based on fostering employment, social policies that would allow to face a greater poverty that we have seen in Chile, we have been witnessing in Chile since the pandemics. And we have had public discussions regarding the importance and not reducing the budget for the Ministry of Education. And these are things that are incorporated in our bill. However, what has had greater repercussion in this context is the voice that has been lifted by different institutions, specifically universities, because they're a significant part of what we do in our Ministry of Education. They are not the only institutions, higher education institutions that we have in our system. It is important right now to see some figures. 55%, 55%. And the first year of education, higher education, accesses technical education, technical professional education. And we have a number of young people that are looking for this, that are looking for these careers, technical professional careers over university careers. And public discussion is focused in universities and not on technical professional careers. There are many reasons, historical reasons. However, this definitely makes us maintain the idea that we need to move forward and we need to strengthen education and we need to foster technical and professional education. We did this as a ministry. We have developed different actions, and what we have wanted to do is to put this in the center of the discussion. We need to foster the importance of technical professional education, and I will mention some of them very fast, some of them that we wanted to develop in these 2 years or 3 years of government. I would like to mention that law establishes creation of a division of an area, and that is an area within the Undersecretariat of Higher Education that has as an objective to promote public policies regarding technical and professional training. And this is led by the chief of the division. And we have also fostered policies that will look for making this equal opportunities between the universities and the technical and professional. And from that point of view, we want to put all these institutions the possibility to access funds and resources that would allow to fund projects of improvement in different areas, innovation, academic innovation, programs, projects, as well as the virtual training. And we have innovated and we have given the possibilities for technical and professional teams to institutions to access these resources. Likewise, next year we have 3 technical professional institutions that will be part of these activities. And as that, we have a number of initiatives, we have a number of signals that we have been given and that are showing the concern that we have presented on this area on technical professional training. I would like to close these words saying how we will be doing, and the technical professional education will have enough relevance in public policies, be included in the public policies and in the current context. I would like to point out that it's been important too, that institutions, technical institutions will have participated in public policies through the media, participation in Congress. All that will promote a look or a view towards higher education and will not only incorporate universities, which are very relevant, at least in our country, but it will also incorporate the view of the technical and professional institutions. I would like to thank you again for this invitation. I would like to motivate you and invite you to have a very fruitful day. For us, as the Ministry of Education and as the Undersecretariat of Education in Chile, we hope you can then transmit all those good practices, and they will definitely have an impact on what we will be doing as public policies and what we will be trying to motivate or foster. Thank you very much. Thank you, Undersecretary. since we met in Temuco 3 years ago. I recognize your values and your focus on the importance of on technical education, and for you, for Chile, and your engine to develop that allows real technical training for adequate labor insertion of the youth. Thank you very much for yours. We hope we can stay some minutes and you can follow the results of the forum. Now I need to make a brief summary of what we have achieved in the last weeks and try to make a continuum of what we will be doing today and what we have done to date. We have had in panel A, October 15, and in panel A, we had October 15, 8 panel members of 6 different countries presenting good practices and policies on the articulation interlevel intersectorial that benefited 850 people. They were all connected. Next week, we had panel B, October 22. We had 10 panel members of 5 countries presenting good practices and policies on another issue regarding the link between the technical training with productive sector, with the production sector, and that benefited 1,274 attendants. Then last week, panel C, October 29, we had 8 panel speakers presenting their good practices. However, in the area of quality assurance, and that benefited 1,445 connected. Today, we are back, 9 of them, with 9 of them for 2 sessions and subgroups first in sub-teams, themes, and countries. And to have a quality work, we needed to reduce the number of participants, and that is only to you, and the other have been invited to connect to our plenary sessions in our large group, and that is via live feed. In YouTube, we are having this being presented, and we would like to welcome you all. We would like to welcome everyone in our live feed, and I would like to thank you very much for your interest and commitment. We now talk about the first session of work in subgroups on subjects. And this space of discussion, we hope it will be a construction, a collective construction based on the presentations on each of the participants. The main objective is to enrich dialogue, allow exchange on people of different countries, Asia Pacific and Canada. Specific objectives for this first session is to generate personalized access to the panel members and experts, generate a space, a conversation on the challenges and implementation of the subjects that we dealt with in a concrete reality, and in line with the participants, with the contribution of the panel members and the experts. It is then important to see how we bring this down to earth and to do it in a personalized way, different from the country. And we have recommendations for that implementation. And then we hope to establish synergies and establish networks for mutual support and dialogue among actors of different sectors of the same country, as well among countries, and a dialogue with the private sector, productive sector, civil society.
Les hemos avisado ayer de actualizar su versión de Zoom
So
para
we've
poder
yesterday asked you to update your Zoom version so that you could have access to the meetings that you might see at the bottom of your page. There's an icon that says groups. So in a couple of minutes, you will be able to go to the subgroup you prefer, where facilitators and panelists will be expecting, waiting for you, so as to debate, but in a personalized manner for 50 minutes. After that, you will go back here to our main room because we will have a plenary session. Each group will have 3 items to share the main milestones of whatever you discussed. So, in the survey that where you have confirmed your presence today, you already have certain a selection. You have already chosen which of the 6 subgroups you wanted to attend, considering the panel members and the facilitators there. So I would like you to please just select or choose the same subgroup and work for the next 50 minutes. So we'll see each other in that period of time. Go ahead. In the meanwhile, if any of you have any difficulties when choosing these subgroups, you could stay here in the main room and you will receive support from Christian, Mo, and Mariela. See you soon.
Muchísimas gracias. Un poco en nombre rápido, en nombre del equipo de PAP. Lamentamos por unas de los problemas técnicos con un evento grande. A veces
Unfortunate. Sometimes there are challenges that are difficult, but thank you very much for your patience, your flexibility, and understanding as well. We will have the opportunity, since we are all going to be in the plenary session, to do all presentations, and each one in those groups will be able to listen at least to the most important points and the conclusions of those
entonces
discussions.
estamos todos de vuelta en
So we
la
are all back
sala grande
in the
antes de
main
ir
room.
con
Now, before
plenaria donde
we
el
start with the
relator
plenary session,
comparten, queremos hacer un
we would
anuncio
like to make an
técnico
announcement, a technical
y ahora
announcement.
pido a Cristian de dar algunas
And
directrices
then I,
de antemano.
Padre Christian,
Disculpamos por
and
cualquier
we
dificultad que
apologize
puedan
for any
haber
technical difficulties you might have had.
nueva herramienta que estamos experimentando
This is
y
a new tool
vamos a
we are
tratar de
experiencing
solucionarlo
with,
con la
so we will try
orientación
to
de
solve
Cristian.
it as soon as
Cristian,
Christian, and
adelante.
Christian will tell us how.
Muchas gracias, Silván.
Thank you, Sylvain.
Bueno, primero comentarles
First of
que
all, let me share with you
la razón por la que algunos de ustedes
that the reason why some of you could not have access to your rooms is because the Zoom you have is not updated. So the first thing I will share with you is my screen. We are looking at the Zoom page. Please, the ones who can, of course,
vamos a pasar a la siguiente
since
sesión,
we are
les
all
pido
going to the next session,
ingresen al
please
sitio
go to the zoom.us,
de recursos,
go to resources,
cliente Zoom.
and
Les pido
download Zoom client. Please download that,
un ejecutable,
and it's going to be an executable.
le dan doble clic y les
You
va
just double click on it,
a
and it
de
will
esa
update
forma
the version
ustedes van a
immediately.
poder
That is how you will be able to have the features in your own Zoom.
quienes puedan tener dificultades
The ones who might have difficulties after that to upload this happened yesterday because some people who had institutional computers, like Silvana said at the very beginning of the session, had to ask for certain permits. So those ones will not be able to update it. But more than half of those who had difficulties will be able to solve it. Anyways, since we would like to make this access to the rooms of the next block easier, I would like to ask you the following. Here you have an icon that says participants. You will see the list of the participants there, and you will be the first ones. Would you please click with your right button in your mouse and rename? When you rename, it's your name, but then add the country that you will be in. We have the countries of the next rooms: Chile, Colombia, Mexico, and Peru. Okay? So in between parentheses, please write the name of the country you would like to be in. Okay? So that when we open the next session, what is the ones who are not assigned, I'm going to do that. And I would like to ask you that the ones who updated, please at least write the country so that I can assign to you, okay? Assign to your room. Thank you. Thank you, Sylvan, for the technical explanation. Thank you, Christian. So, since in the meanwhile, according to our agenda, we will have a plenary session now. Each subgroup and the speaker and maybe someone else in the group who would like to participate as well. But the idea is just in 3 minutes to let us know their conclusions. Let's start with Brigitte and the subgroup C2C3 dual interpretation and distant interpretation. So Brigitte, please, and the speaker, would you please turn on your camera and your microphone?
Muchas gracias, Sylvain.
Thank you very much, Sylvain. I would like to invite to Guillermo. Guillermo and I will invite the speaker about remote education to Jose Juan. Please go ahead. Thank you. The moderator was Dr. Guillermo Solís, who posed two key questions, which was the largest challenge we've had in dual teaching and distant or remote teaching. Delia Tovar mentioned that one of the most difficult things was the design of the curriculum, and the second one, the instructional on the professional component. In other words, competencies, professional competencies in mediation in physical spaces or digital spaces, also autonomy of a student for the development of such competencies or skills, and also link all of this with the productive sector. Janet Gonzalez from UDG University stated that one of the most important goals was the change of paradigms of teachers, since they have to go from traditional to this challenge of remote education. This model was explained. There were some other issues, but we mentioned that they had to work on their own skills, since there was certain demerits at the beginning. The instructional design was also key to try to continue with this challenge, and also the change of the students that could go from this platform to looking for the development of competencies. Guillermo also stated which would be the impact of technology in the case of dual education or remote. Delia mentioned that it was relevant since we needed to have coverage of needs especially in the technology as a tool, and it would be good also to have some labor skills. Another question also was here, Dr. Janet mentioned that, and they had to just go into this remote education boat with all those proven technology, also with our platforms and learning through projects as well. That is something that they are implementing. So this also helped us to work on dual as well as remote for those students that do not have direct access, internet, for example, or another device to be able to give some follow-up to their learning opportunities. Also, the repositories and also the companies were asked that the companies would make it easier for students to also bring that activity. The flexibility was, of course, fundamental to work on their learnings. The CBT 50 shared with us their experience on EMS to also service 50, almost 100% of all the youngsters who responded. Gisela from Colombia also mentioned her concerns on the profiles of tutors, both in high school and also to try to see, since this was also different training because of remote teaching, and the tutor also in the company is trained in pedagogical terms. So basically, those were the conclusions and contents of dual education and remote education. Guillermo Solis, thank you very much for facilitating this. Thank you very much, Jose Juan. We will now go to the next subgroup. I would like to invite Vicente Montoya, Maria Amelia, and Rosalia Antonio for the presentations, please. Hi, friends. The group of learning, assessment, and focus on competencies, our friend Rosalia Antonio, who is from the Ministry of Education in Peru.
Bien, muchas gracias, Vicente. No sé si pueden observar en pantalla.
Vicente, I think you can see the document that we are going to present now as the elements that we have shared with all of you during this session. Okay, in this panel, the panel that we've been like 30 attendees from Canada, Mexico, Chile, and Colombia to discuss the thematic element of learning assessment and focus on skills, skill-oriented. The success factors that we would suggest for them to be sustainable in our realities as well. So we started this panel with very important elements for us that have been collected, such as, for example, stating in the policies, the national principles that will be the guiding principles of assessment, and that they are going to be as a guide and as a guideline to be applied in the TVETs, and that also enable us to be flexible enough to be autonomous in terms of the institutions that are part of it, the ones who are going to apply those principles, which at the same time should be updated considering these new elements that have been presented by the pandemia context, such as, for example, someone mentioned that in Mexico, the disruptive assessments or disruptive mechanisms has been like the trend that we've had to be able to test or try new things. And also what we have been having on the adaptation to be able to come closer to this in the context of realities of companies, reinforcing this autonomy that these principles could have or should have. Continuing with these same insights, the implementation of such principles demands from us to train teachers in skills training, which might be a totally new way of thinking about the pedagogical culture because they need to be change agents pro students and they should foster this new reaction for those processes. From SENA, they also recommended that we need to learn better strategies to assess not only the technical competencies of the students, but also the social-emotional competencies oriented towards the attitudes and values development, and especially considering the diversity, the interculturality that we have in each one of the areas. It's also key to have achievements descriptors of soft competencies, or from Canada, they also talked about those descriptors that could help us see the gradual different levels. And also that we have to consider which are those scores to try to rate the performance of people. So we will see that this is added up or integrated in the technical performance depending on the maturity level that each one of them has achieved. And finally, it is also important to acknowledge and bear in mind that differential focus that appraises culture and the ancestral values of communities, especially based on the criteria of inclusion that should be developed in our education to try to set those principles and routes that are going to help them, without, of course, meaning that we are going to standardize competencies because of the international trends that we might see, but that the public policies should be careful to try to foster these new ideas. That's what we can share with you today. Thank you very much. Excellent. Excellent summary, Rosalia. Okay, let's start with the next subgroup. Please, Enrique and Veronica, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. Sylvain, I would like the support of André Bougenot, who will be sharing with us the discussions we had in the group, please. Thank you, Enrique. This was a small group or team for the discussion, but we had certain ideas and challenges that were very relevant. In a nutshell, this was basically into how to build this bridge or rebuild this bridge that is broken between the industry or the working world, the labor world, and education. And then we have seen there different ideas that were prompted. One of them is the coordinating role of the productive sector. And in the specific case of Chile, the role that CPC has had as a leader of this initiative. It's been key to us. So the productive sector is certainly a stakeholder, and not any stakeholder, but a key one. Because the condition is also that they can view things in a long-term basis, and there's no political bias or issue or tent, but it's a long-term basis relationship. Another thing we also saw on how to rebuild this bridge, as we called it, is to collaborate in these common problems. When there's a problem such as this one, collaboration starts flowering by itself, sprouting. And we could see that there was a real need to try to have technical people in maintenance 2.0, which was cross-sectional to different productive sectors. And that also generated then initiatives to be able to work in a collaborative manner. Another important point is a possibility of scaling of cascading it upstream. we also need to implement it, of course. And another success factor has been working with INACAP. INACAP is a higher education, technical professional education that is all along Chile, 27 different campuses, and they can scale up those needs in terms of training. Fourth, and certainly very important as well, is to have funding. And specifically in the case of enabling the collaborative work, funding came from the private sector. And then we had private, and then we had public for new challenges. Finally, we also saw the need on how we value our technical professional education, and the panel stated the need that we have to maybe concentrate in fostering the vocational orientation for young people. Not only, I'm sorry, not only from the training point of view, but also from homes. Avoid discrimination to foster the need or what the youngsters want or need to have or would like to follow without any discrimination, of course. That was another one of the subject matters we discussed. That's my summary. Thank you very much, Andre. Excellent job. Good summary.
Gino, te paso la
Gino, please. Our subgroup to see the context.
Gracias, Sylvain.
Thank you,
Quisiera
Sylvain. I would like to thank, first of all, to Alma Corona, who will share with us the main ideas on the articulation mechanisms and diagnosis. Thank you very much. Good morning. Okay, we started with a question, with a triggering question, which have been the main or key factors for good practices, these success cases. And in order to be able to start with our conversation, we invited the participants to share certain experiences they have had, and they talked about the SEAC pilot project with 51 universities of the of region E of technical institutions in Peru, and it was a scalable process that was deemed successful. Once we have that experience, we then listened to the panel members, and they talked about different things. We had the productive sector, government as well, and in the case of Nestlé, they also mentioned which were those partnerships for all the technical professional youngsters, and then they also made a comment that we had to foster then with different recommendations and sustainability. So we mentioned three different points. We had a commitment at an internal level of the High Directorate. We understand that there is a commitment at that level, and to keep that same narrative. What we want to communicate is also social value. And we also talked about the creation of networks that might be also ambassadors that might help us and be with us all the all the all the way. He was talking about the projects as well on the Eleva project. These strategies had to be prioritized by the sectorial areas. So we needed to have also strategy to create collaborative networks. And then at the same time, we could be adapted to the new areas, such as with COVID-19, and we had to act and adapt ourselves very, very fast to undertake the program. There's another key area, which is the educational sector, government sector. private sector meeting, and this has also brought us to the successful cases. And now, in the third panel, was talking about from the labor secretariat. She was talking about these instances of a train for the labor world, where we develop competencies or skills, labor skills as well, so for those who have technical knowledge. We need to create a committee and also to be with those talents along with the productivity sector. And then there should be certain articulation with the collaborative networks as well, so as to foster the practice for students or in the productive sectors, and in those cases for teachers also to have a certain impact on them. So once they have this participation, we reach a certain summaries for the triggering question that we said at the beginning. For these good practices would be some factors. Let me say it again. This depends on many other factors. So with all these experiences, we stated or detected that we needed to have an articulated work between the Ministry of Education in order to create qualification frameworks to try to level up the curriculum for the students, to foster training for teachers as well, something that is very important through maybe diplomas, certificates, or setting other post-studies, the creation of common profiles, technical visits to training centers or institutes. Also, teacher internships to try to get education in a cross-sectional way, to encourage the private world through different strategies. One of them was talking about, for example, this 4-year certification by a training program. And this meant that the productive sector was always motivated and would like also to be as part of this project. Commitment at an internal level of the high directorate. That's also very important, to try to keep that narrative, that content that we want to communicate. Those are the things that we needed to share so that it could also be successful, our program be successful. And of course, and obviously, the collaborative networks at a national and international levels. That's all I can say about this. Thank you.
Excelente, muchísimas gracias por ese resumen. Ahora pasamos al siguiente grupo. Y
Thank you very much. We will go now to the next group. And Liliana Gallardo.
Muchísimas gracias, Silván. Bueno,
Thank you, Silván.
Fuimos un grupo bastante pequeño.
My group was very small. 4 panel members and 2 participants. And this was not my function, but I thank you very much for your trust. And Fernando Vargas. This is quite enriching. Answering the identification of the success factors. The first is a success factor for the classification of competencies and different actors, entrepreneurial, the companies, the state, and this has been pointed out by each of the panel members, and the certificate of competencies, and in the area of management and human talent. So those that are going to be certified in terms of competencies will come out from the formal system. Also, the certification of competencies as a valid strategy so as to support liability, and there should be an important factor for mobility of people in this training levels. Anyone speaking?
Un cuarto punto fue la necesidad de contar con un lenguaje común en todos estos.
A fourth point is a common language for all the actors that will allow the standardization on different educational systems, and on the certification of competencies as a third way. We have the competencies. A fifth point has to do with the participation of employers and workers in this concept of three parties, but starting from a social dialogue focus, and that should be reflected in the processes as a success factor as well as a dialogue factor. A sixth point has to do with the opportunity, with the classification and competencies, opening the focus and throughout life. So the certification mechanisms are necessary. We're talking about training and certification of competencies people have obtained through life or at work. And we need to certify that. So certification of competencies is reevaluated so as to include it in the national and regional framework where the countries are concentrated in. We had an example in the case of Chile Valora, where this element of three parties, where we have workers, representatives of the different ministries, allowed them to generate trust, not only legitimacy, that also in during conflict times, when there was a conflict among sector, this dialogue generated consensus. And a good practice is that the formation of these organism or organization should be boards with the three parties. And we wanted to say that they also wanted to link to other actors and a horizontal dialogue to develop processes and experiences, achieve a cooperation work with other organizations and other countries. And we have internal actors, public policies, and that has become an enabling element for certain processes. If they can participate in the training, technical and professional training. And also the process and design, qualification, and open up the dialogue of the different actors and focus on the competencies. A 13th subject is funding, and certification of competencies is very high to certify that. So most of the countries are working in this area and with organizations and people that work, and linking that to our companies so as to support us in the process and for them to recognize that certification will be part of it, and also for managing the company and the workers based on competencies. Then Peru certification is taking a lot of importance, technology certification and services, and it is important to see how they link to the companies and generate a value market for the certificates in a certification and a measure. And that would also allow the certification to identify the gaps and in the workers. So this is an opportunity also to see. And lastly, the certification on competencies, as Fernando Vargas was saying, is a dimension of internationalization. So we need to look for standardization mechanisms. And there are many migrants. And what we want is to have a number of people, and we need to know learning competencies so they can link to productive sector. And we have to articulate the processes, certification, and recognition and learning of each of the countries. So it's important for the training based on competencies should be linked to human behavior. And in certification and competencies, and this is part of the profile of the people that are offering the companies with the certification and competencies. And education was also there analyzed in competency evaluation, and this is something that we still need to work on. Thank you very much. We have the last subgroup, Isuyin.
Gracias, Silvain. Nosotros estuvimos con Suijin del
Thank you,
Ministerio de
Sylvain. We were with the Suijin from the Ministry of Education in Chile. We were facilitating the group in the framework of qualification and also on articulation in that area so as to make it at a regional level. Would like to offer the floor to that team so they can do the report. Thank you, Nestor. Our group was very small, 7 and then 9, and we ended up with 20 something. So I had to start working as a host from the first minute. And we started with a reflection, with a thought on the question of what have been the success factor? What are the success factors in qualification framework in the countries? And Liliana from Mexico commented that in legislation, support institutionality, and the regulation in the area of knowledge of other countries. And that has also been a success factor for the implementation of the framework of the country. And Ingrid from Chile commented that a success factor was also linking alliances. And this is key for sustainable development. Alliances with different actors, national, international, with relevance and joint work needs the support of everyone. And then we made a second question of the participants of the group who were the main challenges that presented in the implementation of the qualification framework. Paola from Chile said that and had a number of challenges that they had in the country, challenges, technical challenges, and in terminology, and all the sectors can understand the same. So in pandemics with COVID had a great challenge. And considering what has been planned in the qualification system in Chile was made for face-to-face, but it had to be changed to online. So during the pandemics, it has been a challenge considering on the different sectors and the different areas. And in the different areas, there has been a challenge on how to use the qualification framework. In this sense, we need to transmit the use and the benefits of qualification framework, and that has been a challenge. And that is an extensive and good campaign, communicational campaign of institutionality. And that would be a great challenge too. And we need to involve this to different actors and the role within that framework. It also said that Liliana from Mexico said that the changes in the rules need to be updated very fast, and that is easy for them. And then on the other side in Colombia, they comment that a challenge is a standard that supports the implementation framework of Colombia. and that have to agree, the Ministry of Education as well as the Ministry of Labor, so as to take this process forward of being aware and agreeing for 3 years. And we have in the educational sector autonomy, institutions, and especially in curriculum design. So what they need to do is an association of the framework. And they also commented that in Colombia, the process of institutionality and governance of the framework is also a challenge. That we need to work very strongly with the productive sector. A big conclusion on all the participants and the different countries that we were in our group is that the greatest challenge, the greatest regional challenge, is the framework of qualification. And that framework of qualification is a challenge of the 4 countries in the Pacific Alliance. So we can all share, we will have to face this in the near future. This is a qualification framework. Thank you very much. Thank you, Shuyin. Excellent summary. It's impressive to see the wealth of information that we're capturing. And I would like to say that, well, if you see down here, if you have the option of put a reaction, I will ask you a question and you will answer at the same time with the reactions with an icon. So we see that work was short, but very rich. And that therefore there are many of you that have an interest to continue working together. I want to continue with these subgroups that could go back and meet again. Not a heavy meeting, but maybe 2 or 3 meetings in the next month, so as to give an opportunity to you in different countries to have an opportunity of continue talking and exchanging and have all that in the air and the interest and collaborating from a country to the other, sharing lessons learned and good practices. Everything at the same time. So we're all interested are you all interested in receiving an invitation with anticipation and time for 2 or 3 meetings for every subgroup? Yes or no? Perfect. That is the subject of the commitment that we have with the Canadian corporation. So what we need to do is to foster a concrete result. And in this sense, we need to support you. So these policies or good practices could be implemented. Sylvain, would you like to repeat the question? Because we presented a vote. And we have the results. We can show you the results. So Christian was saying, and the votes, you can vote here on screen, please do so. And thank you, Christian. Now, we need to go to the following subgroup. This will be by country. And the objectives different. We need to identify the good practices and policies of greatest interest or greatest relevance per country, seeing the priorities of the administration. And What we need to do here is to identify good practices so as to see where you want to hear more, where you want to know better, and knowing how to implement it. Interest and the objective of identifying the next steps. Next steps in a horizon of 2 years, which is the time that we have an Canadian cooperation in September 2022. There is a potential continue exploring the subject, not only in a country in an isolated way, but with an exchange and promoting dialogue and collaboration with the 5 countries. Now, we have two options for the subgroups. Directing the button down here for the country that you want to observe, you want to watch or participate, or through Christian mode, you have already been appointed, directly appointed to a subgroup. And if you have the old version of Zoom, you will have to be appointed by someone else. We have already identified some facilitators that will guide you with a question. Thank you. We will go 50 minutes to the other subgroup per country, and we will be back soon.
Felicidades, felicidades a todos. Excelente foro.
No se vayan todavía.
Felicidades,
Tenemos unos minutos más, por favor.
Excelente foro, excelente foro. Excelente.
Excellent forum. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Really, it has been really, really excellent. We need more time. We always need more time. We have to certainly go back to it. We are learning a lot. Thank you very much. It's a very productive forum. Thank you very much. Congratulations. We'll be waiting for you here in Mexico. Don't leave, please. We haven't finished. We just saw that there was some time in between, then we're using the time to congratulate everyone. Okay, we're back. We're back in the room, in the main room, and we are going to go directly to listen to the main speakers of each one of the rooms, of course, very, very briefly, okay, very short. We need to do some, the closing session also includes some closing remarks. So only for 3 minutes each. Let's start with our friends from Chile. Would you please? Yes, thank you, Sylvain. Okay, we had a very interesting, fun workshop. We saw basically 2 pillars or 2 areas where we would like to know or learn more, or where we have practices that we might want to deliver to contribute to the development. One of them is the importance that partnerships have in generating a technical education that is more relatable to the productive sectors. And here Ingrid talked about the partnerships in the panel for gender equality and how through that we can accelerate it not only at work but also in education and their decisions, the decision-making processes. There were some successful cases presented related to Sense, also the Ministry of Labor, and the Department or Ministry of Women. So there are certain coordinations that have already been done and certain successful case studies. We also talked about according to the group I was in, vocational orientation. We need to certainly concentrate on this because we need to help them to make better decisions. That is why we also talked about how we could accelerate or improve this orientation, this guidance. We talked about influencers or maybe or others that would help us or help them on the decisions on when to study for young people. And also another interesting pillar is families and parents, not only young people, but also the way in which we can support their parents so that they can also contribute in that decision. On that same regard, we also heard from Nestlé a contribution to employability, which is an approach, and a really interesting approach between technical students and the company. And this was along with workers or employees of Nestlé. They would bring them support in the skills building for employability, how to develop, for example, a curriculum or a CV, going to an interview, etc. So besides building these skills, there is a new approach and closer approach. Then there are two examples, one of them in Canada that is related, as Sylvain was saying, of mentorships where professionals from companies would ascribe to that, would join them, and they can talk to students and also explain to them what is this about, what are the productive sectors about, etc. And there's also with the students and also the productive sector. And in Peru, there's also always an initiative that also contribute to develop those skills. So what we see, in other words, is the possibility of being closer. Some of the countries where we would like to know more, maybe, is Colombia, because Colombia has moved forward a lot for technical professionals. So that means that we have worked, or how we have worked with productive sectors and others. And in Peru, because they have been moving toward those qualification frameworks. In Chile, we have also done so, but we need to be more connected to rapport better to local realities so as to support each other. And finally, there are some other things that we also talked about, but well, we don't have more time. So I would like to invite you to connect among each other to have a sustainable relationship. Collaborative work is the only way in which we will be able to move faster in this eagerness of having better technical professional education in our country. So thank you very much for the forum and the opportunity of sharing with you. Thank you, Andre. Let's now go to Mexico, please. Thank you, Sylvan. We also had an interesting group, more than 130 participants from different organizations in Mexico. That's why we had to accelerate a little bit our comments. We have to move forward. And Juan Jose Gutierrez is going to be our main speaker. Okay, thank you very much, Enrique. I'm not going to quote for each one of them because we will try to keep it short. Successful practices were quite moving in terms of the adaptability of teachers, students, managers, the adaptation that we had to do from a pedagogical point of view, but also from other perspectives, like the HETIS, CITES, and other organizations which are training centers for labor, etc. There is a need for participants to have these collaborative efforts joined together so as to add up our efforts, having different organizations and also labor competencies, cross-sectionally speaking, from different institutions, organizations, and then successful programs such as CONELEP at a national level, the digital sponsorship to support young people who do not have connectivity or limited resources. There's also a lack of connectivity, or it was at least mentioned the need that they have to go from education to the labor world as a factor in their economies. Also, the lack of membership or enrollment that we have in those areas as well, and also because of teachers, that there is a challenge of in collaborative work, and also the dedication that teachers have, and that also the ones who were participating in our own group mentioned. There was also exchange of technological transfer and international intervention of contents and some proposals to be able to participate not only at a national but also international level. So maybe through some development committees and participation of the organizations, we could do so. So as Enrique Cuque was saying, this was it was emotional, it was difficult to take or to grasp all the ideas, but it's been really great to participate in this forum because we could see also the solidarity that we are having amongst ourselves, and also the skills that our young people have to work to achieve their competencies. And also because of the limitations that sometimes we have, maybe lack of connectivity or lack of machines, of equipment. Thank you very much. Good summary. Perfect. Okay, let's go to Peru, please.
Bien, muchas gracias. Vamos a dar el pase igual que en la primera parte.
Just as in the first part, we will leave now Rosalia. The floor is yours. Thank you, Vicente. Once again, let me share my screen. I would like to mention that, yes, unfortunately, not having enough time was not good for us. Sometimes we said that virtuality, life flies, in other words. Okay, under this premise, and yes, it's a conclusion by geographic group. In Peru, we acknowledge that learning all along our life is key for the development of the following actions that we need to implement. Before, we talked about the qualifications framework, and this has been one of the main pillars between sectors, of the approach between sectors. That's one of the main aspects that we talked about. At the same time, articulation between public and private is one of the challenges that we still need to work in, and also to try to bring agreements that would help us build that articulation. What kind of policies we would like to have or need to have, especially because of that dialogue that we need to have among different sectors. Today, one of the elements that we needed to talk about is migration. Since mobility, people's mobility, is posing a challenge for such workers, since they should also have the possibility of performing in any context. And so that is one of the elements that we are also working with for the development of that same policy making. And also on that same line, we would like to talk about, from the training point of view, the policy of transferability. This is for forthcoming years, by the way, although in Peru we have a standard that is setting us on the right path for certification through the qualifications national framework in order to have different types of enrollment to the educational world, and also leaving the educational world and getting into the working world or labor world. Still, having this possibility is one of the things that we need. Transferability, meaning that they can transit or come from one space to the other one. So it's also important that we need to have all those possibilities, and that we are implementing. It's also key that we acknowledge that the certification are the key elements for this policy. Another one would be strengthening the training of our own teachers. Once again, this is something that we have heard in this room, and specifically in this working group as well, because the virtual world has taught us that there is a need and strengthening the pedagogical process as well. As a matter of fact, also acknowledging that the different routes are not the only ones, of course, but there might be some others that we need to understand that should be within this qualifications framework. At the same time, what we have seen not only in the organizations we have previously mentioned, but also in the public sector, it's key that this is visualized in a vertical and horizontal axis. Vertical because we have a central government that decentralizes all the roles at a territorial level. So they should have this interaction so as to go ahead and implement those policies. And also because there might be among different parties, different stakeholders, same maybe management level, but the political processes and political actions could also be articulated, and they are not in silos. On this same line, the human talent management policy, which would be within the qualification framework, or MNC, which is how we've called it, is a key tool for the next 3 years. What's pending? What's pending? Things that we need to still reflect upon, or maybe questions that made us think beyond, more than everything else that we have mentioned already. We need to still keep on working, because there's experience, such as with our Canadian friends, that they need, or we need, to acknowledge the autonomy of institutions in order to work on the curriculums, for example, so that institutions might have more autonomy in the management of the educational service that is not visualized yet in our country. We also mentioned that the articulation between the different levels, such as the technical or tertiary, is something that is not totally linked, and that the MNC is just a tool that could enable us on this mobility. And also the actors or stakeholders in the region. What are the recommendations that we might have? And also because they specifically mentioned that there are some educational entities in our room. And also that means that there could be certain other actions for those practices as professional information for young people, and also that there is a need to come closer to these companies, and also that these companies have difficulties in receiving them because of the environment, because of the laws that they are not flexible yet, and that we still have to work on that. And finally, not only at a company's level, but also at a public level, that there should be also those public services being practical actions for those who are being trained. And then among all the reflections we have in the list of chats is that we can reinforce the possibility for the students to have access to the practical training through the organizations that are more flexible, and that the qualification also mentions that dual education as an experience as others that participated in our forum. That's what we have it at a regional level. Thank you. Thank you, Rosalia. Well done. Excellent job that you shared your screen as a visual aid. Let's go to Colombia, please.
Colombia now. It was a very relevant space. We did have actors that were very important at the Entrepreneurial Council for the Pacific Alliance in the chapter of Colombia. And everyone participated there on SENA. For the report that we concluded in this case, I will offer the floor to Jair and the National Framework of Qualification of the National Ministry. Thank you, Nestor. Good afternoon. As Nestor said, it's very important, the conclusions that we reached. I will very fast to appoint the people that participated with the conclusions, Colombia. And we pointed out a differential focus on the processes. And they established there that it's important to recognize the differences of the groups at a certification, competency certification as technical and technological certification process. And that implies that it's very important for those that make decisions in each of the countries should be aware of the adjustments that need to be carried out so as to develop these processes with success. Ana Cortázar from Andy in Colombia leads an initiative of practices, student practices, and she wants to involve more in the different initiatives that were developed in the forum, points out the importance of the private sector in the development of these subjects. She additionally comments that it is very important to know the strategies developed in each of the countries in the Pacific Alliance so as to put them into context, share them, and strengthen the framework of actions that are developed in this group. Likewise, Ernesto Suarez from Colombia mentions that the country has great challenges around the dual formation, dual training, and they need to have a great push in this sense with the international cooperation centers, which play an important role. Jair Aguilar points out the issue of qualification framework, and it's interesting. And the Pacific Alliance, and they have a new area in the science structuring of the institutions that is operating in qualification framework in each of the countries. They also point out the importance of developing the initiatives, population differences, and the needs of the region in terms of language, process, technology, so they can also develop and empower the processes and certification, as well as training. And allow everyone to develop. We talked about what happened with the competencies in all countries and the possibility of generating alliances within the countries, so that would allow to get to know some regulated issues. And it is very important to share experiences with visibilization and in the academic area. One of the issues that called the attention of the forum is qualification framework and the development in each country around this subject, and it points out the importance of seeing this from a multisectorial point of view. So it would be important to see what some countries have done. These were the main aspects in the groups of Colombia.
Muchísimas gracias. Wow. Entonces.
Thank you very much. I would like to offer the floor to Bridget Shea,
agente principal del programa.
To share as the main agent of the program and what are the next steps to anticipate with our forum. Bridget. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. A summary of what would be the next stages and of the forum, of this successful forum. And the first stage is that we will have a survey with the satisfaction survey. This survey will be in the chat. And we will also share that with an email. The first large product that will come out of this forum is that we will be writing a forum summary of the forum, everything that was shared in these 4 webinars of the forum as a guide of good practices, policies, guidelines that were shared, so they can become a useful tool so as to strengthen exchange among the countries with Canada and the other countries. Another product after the forum, we would like to recognize the valuable participation of each and every one of you, and all those that participated in the last 3 webinars, and we will be offering certification and participation, thanking you for your participation, hoping that you were able to strengthen your capacities, professional capacities. And as we have done, we want to continue fostering dialogue, and we want to increase that 90% of interest and conversation and dialogue as part of the activities from a PIP program. And they will be creating focal groups and national groups, and so as to continue doing this and recommendations and good practices, strengthening the activities in the last 2 years. In the PAP that is going to conclude in September 2020. So this is the summary, fast and executive and short of all the stages. Thank you. Thank you, Bridget. You have here in the link a survey, satisfaction survey, and we have to locate the language, and you can answer the survey based on your language. I would like to invite you to our second to last political authority, because we have the luck of having with us Angélica Romero Lopez. She's chief of the Department of Energy, Trade and Sustainable Development, and of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Chile. And they have developed or worked in the public sector. And Direcon worked in Direcon, the predecessor of what is today the Undersecretariat of the International Relations. Exports Pro Chile and Fundación Chile. And Romero Lopez has experience in the area of trade and the environment, and has participated in negotiation of foreign trade agreements with Chile, Asia, and other countries. Official representative of Chile in international organizations, and also the Foreign Trade Organization, the Forum of Economic Cooperation Asia Pacific, and they participate in discussions in the area of trade, the environment, and civil aviation, and also the UN framework for climate change. She has diploma in master's in public policy. We are in very good hands. Ms. Romero Lopez, go ahead.
Tardes a todos, a todas. Es un gusto saludarlos. Voy a partir explicando por qué
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be able to be here. Right now, I'm in charge or director of economic affairs for the multilateral world, and I'm here as a national coordinator for the Pacific Alliance. Then, as you know, Chile is being the pro tempore chair of the Pacific Alliance. So I am representing the Undersecretary for International Communications, Rodrigo Yáñez, and also to share something with you, to talk to you for a short while. Let me start by thanking the summaries that Andrés, Jose, Rosalia, and Jair did. I think that, to be honest, it is very good to listen to all of you. I was not able to be here for the whole time, but also because you mentioned things that are very relevant, such as labor competencies, which are the programs that we can push towards education. And I would like to start by saying that education is a very relevant subject matter in the Pacific Alliance. And as a matter of fact, it's been here as a pillar from the agreement that we signed in Panama in the year 2012. We have certainly pushed towards that idea of education because we feel that education will enable us to boost also more growth, development, competitiveness of all the economies, and at the same time, being in this type of settings, help us to close certain gaps or build certain bridges, as someone said, and at the same time to start their labor lives, especially now in this pandemia context, when many of us, many youngsters too, are asking, how could I be enrolled into the next stage? I also heard Jose mentioning that there was a creativity of teachers, not only in technological terms, but also pedagogical ones. Also listening that you have been able to share interesting programs that are also calling you upon the continuation of those conversations or debates. More than 90% of the participants in this Congress are also ties to continue participating, and that they will certainly in national and international forums. So I would just like thank, first of all, Global Affair Canada, Institute and College in Canada as well, because for us, colleges and institute council, because of the support they have given us to be able to move forward, is really relevant. It's clear that it is a great effort on our end, and that's also what Andre mentioned, that in the qualifications framework in Colombia and Peru have been moving forward. In Chile, a little bit behind, maybe we're lagging on that sense, but we are still looking for that. We are looking forward to start doing it or to keep on doing it. There's also room for improvement and for progress, and in other matters, skills or companies matters at the same time. So all the information, all of this compiling of background information, all of this work we have been doing from the CAN, and also with the Global Affairs Canada support for the Alliance, Pacific Alliance is relevant because we could not be able to reach so many people if we did not have the support that we will have. But also because we are concentrated in bringing that in all the programs that we have developed with the EPF-AP. Okay, also sharing with you that as an alliance, since it's also relevant to us, and the reason is that I was also participating in a virtual workshop about digital talent. And we discussed the way in which we work on boot camps. Boot camps is also something that is mentioned frequently in technical professional and other type of work among young people. And because the Pacific Alliance is strongly working as well in having a regional digital market. Of course, then the qualifications, the competencies, and also working together in this alliance will help us strengthen this market, this regional digital market that we would like to boost. And it is not only, of course, having certain matters related to products or the trading of products, but everything that is related to services. And I would like to mention also someone who mentioned something about mobility of people, and which is something that the Pacific Alliance is also working in. As you know, what this mechanism wants is specifically to make it easier for everyone to move capital or assets and people or resources, okay? I know that this has been a long day for you, so I would just like thank you and thank you for your interest. You have had more than 1,500 participants in these different forums, the ones that you have been developed. So if we add them all up, also, of course, once again, thanking colleges and institutes in Canada, Global Affairs Canada, also the technical group of education that has been behind this interesting job because they have been silently working in the background. It's been great to listen all those summaries because there's no doubt that there are challenges ahead of us, but also there's a lot of interest, a lot of work that we have been doing, and I think that's the way in which we can move along. So thank you very much once again, Sylvain, also for giving me this time. It's a pleasure to be with you, and the Undersecretary Yanez once again shares, and not only him, but also I have just finished a high-level group where we have had the Vice Ministers of Trade and Vice Ministers of Foreign Affairs also today, early in the morning, to see how much we have been making progress in the Pacific Alliance that will be in December. So thank you very much for being there and for also bringing us so many good ideas. It was great. I wrote some things down. I have made many notes because I need to share this information to our authorities. There's no doubt in my mind that the report that Sylvain and Brigitte are going to prepare will be relevant for sure. So thank you once again. We will be eagerly waiting for that report, and we will keep, of course, working on that specific areas. Thank you for everything. Ms. Romero, once again, thank you very much for the dynamism of your words, of your moving words, all the energy, all the details you paid attention to, and all the conclusions that we have presented. And also, on behalf of our group of SICAN, we would like to thank you and also everyone else for the national coordinations of the Pacific Alliance to maybe give us such a pertinent advice on our design. So thank you very much once again. Our last guest is Mrs. Sarah Cohen, General Director. And I'm going to continue in English, if I'm allowed.
Okay.
Let me switch. languages
So
here.
Sarah Cohen is Director General for South America and Inter-American Affair Bureau of Global Affair Canada. She joined the Canadian Foreign Service in 2004. Her first assignment was at the Canadian Embassy in Washington, D.C. Ms. Cohen has worked extensively on Canada's engagement with the Pacific Alliance countries. As head of the political section, she was posted to Bogota, Colombia from 2009 to 2012, and also posted to Santiago, Chile from 2014 until 2016. She also served in the Foreign and Defense Policy Secretariat at the Privy Council Office as the senior analyst responsible for Latin America and the Caribbean, during which time Canada first became an observer to the Pacific Alliance. So it is all very relevant to what we're doing here today. Ms. Cohen is born and raised in Montreal, Quebec, and therefore she speaks French, English, and Spanish very well. So Ms. Cohen, please, you have the floor.
Greetings to all. I would like to thank Colleges and Institutes Canada, CICAN, for this opportunity to take the floor as we conclude this important international forum on technical and vocational education and training, or TVET as we like to call it. Bonjour à tous. Je voudrais remercier Collèges et Instituts Canada pour m'inviter à prendre la parole alors que se conclut cet important forum. Saludos a todos y a todas. Me gustaría agradecer a CICAN por
I would also like to thank CICAN for inviting me and allowed to participate in this important forum.
I'd like to start by commending CICAN's agility in organizing this forum and adapting it to a virtual format. While this new reality presents some challenges, I think we can say it also offers opportunities. For instance, this format has made participation more inclusive. It is impressive to see that over 2,000 participants took part, and I know many of you would have been otherwise unable to participate due to distance and travel costs. I want to sincerely thank all the panelists and authorities that offered interesting and thoughtful presentations on the TVET practices and policies they are implementing and advocating for in your respective countries and industries. It was wonderful to see the strong lineup of speakers and presenters that took part, including the Minister and Deputy Minister of Education of Peru, the Minister of Labor of Peru, and the Vice Minister of Education of Colombia, amongst others, as well as numerous thematic experts, including international experts from UNESCO and ILO Sinterfor. I can personally speak to how much Canada values its relationship with the Pacific Alliance. I was serving in Colombia when the Pacific Alliance was first created in 2011, and I was working at the Privy Council office, responsible for Latin America, when Canada became the first non-Latin American observer to the Pacific Alliance in 2012. I also had the opportunity to attend the Pacific Alliance Leaders Summit in 2013 as a result of that job. And I also remember very well when the joint declaration on a partnership between Canada and the members of the Pacific Alliance was signed in June 2016, while I was wrapping up my posting to Chile. In the intervening years, our relationship with the Pacific Alliance and its member countries continues to mature. Chile, Colombia, Mexico, and Peru remain among Canada's closest partners in the Americas. We're proud to have supported the Pacific Alliance's objectives since its inception in 2011. Today, Canada is in the process of completing requirements to become an associated state of the Pacific Alliance. As a testament of our commitment, Canada has invested more than $23 million in cooperation projects to support our joint declaration since 2016. The Pacific Alliance Education for Employment program, executed by Colleges and Institutes Canada, is one of those projects. Today's TVET Intersectoral Forum event forms part of the Canada-funded project between CICAN and the Pacific Alliance. This 6-year regional program aims to improve socioeconomic opportunities for young men and women in an inclusive and sustainable extractive industry, in support of 4 Sustainable Development Goals and its alignment with Canada's Feminist International Assistance Policy. More specifically, the project focuses on gender equality in all of Canada's international assistance investments to address economic, political, and social inequalities, as well as on expanding Canada's support for global education, including for the poorest and most vulnerable. The success of this initiative would not have been possible without the commitment of the Pacific Alliance. I'm very pleased with the collaboration and close cooperation between Colleges and Institutes Canada and the Pacific Alliance Technical Group on Education. I would also like to thank the national coordinators for their support of this project. I am delighted that our support made possible valuable intersectoral dialogue between public and private stakeholders, including civil society and international experts, to address various Pacific Alliance TVET priority themes, including interlevel articulation, private sector alignment, and quality assurance. Although we all operate in different environments and come with unique perspectives, sharing our experience and best practices in these ways allows us to strengthen the skills and knowledge of our governments, the education sector, the private sector, and other key stakeholders. When natural resources are managed equitably with environmental stewardship in mind, we can make major contributions to our country's economic development and long-term prosperity. For Canada, inclusive governance, including of the natural resources sector, is where the state, civil society, individuals, and the private sector can work together to create gender equitable change, allocate resources, and make decisions that promote human rights, advance accountability, as well as champion civil engagement. Ensuring that women and youth are at the forefront of any development initiative truly creates sustainable and equitable change that benefits all. Successful development requires the participation of all members of society. Making sure that this participation is grounded in accessible education and vocational training is another important component of Canada's engagement in the region. Through such projects and programs, we seek to support the development of human capital and the next generation of leaders in the Americas, while also strengthening the linkages between our country's educational institutions. I look forward to hearing how you continue to engage and apply the tools and information this forum presented. I wish everyone a wonderful rest of the day and good health to you and your families. Thank you. Merci. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you so much for these inspiring words of closing remarks. Now, ahora me encantaría a nombre de SICAN.
I would like now, on behalf of SICAN and the Canadian government, as well as on behalf of the Pacific Alliance, we would like to thank the contribution that our panel members have done in these last 4 weeks. Once again, thanking you. So many participants that have been connected. We know that it could have been live through YouTube, or maybe the ones that are going to listen again to all our videos. Thank you very much to everyone. We'd also like to thank the Communicational Strategy Group of the Pacific Alliance for their help in promoting this project and program. We also would like to thank e-Congress for their wonderful supporting multimedia and the interpreters who have been a fantastic job. Once again, and finally, we deeply recognize the group and, in a wider comment, the organizing committee, whom we have worked from March, so 8 months already, facing the challenge of the pandemic and also redesigning a new format of this forum by force majeure and these high quality panel members. Congratulations to our colleagues from SICAN that behind the screen have done a fantastic job as well. This co-animation, this preparation, etc. So it is such a joint effort. Thank you very much, everyone. I would like to thank you again for your excellent participation. And I would like to ask you to please answer the survey that you will find in the chat. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Muchas gracias a ustedes.
Gracias,
Hasta
Silván.
luego.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Gracias a todos.
Gracias a todos.
Gracias, hasta luego.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Gracias a
Gracias,
todos.
Silvani. Los esperamos en México, Silvani.
Por su participación.
Gracias a todos.
Muchas gracias. Ingrid, muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Este sistema.
Gracias.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias a todos. Gracias.
Muchas gracias.
Queremos agradecer desde México, Conalep. Gracias por la invitación.
Tecnológico Nacional de México los espera, Silvani, en México.
Gracias, Conalep.
Gracias.
Gracias a todos.
Perú.
Gracias, Indira. Saludos a todos.